All right, let's dive into the world of intermittent fasting, IF. We're going deep with Dr. LaRosa's YouTube video on this buzzy topic. Is a pair just a fad, or is there something more to it?
Well, it's interesting. IF isn't really about drastically cutting those calories. It's more about strategically changing when you eat, cycling between periods of eating and, well, not eating.
So, not a diet in the traditional sense. That definitely makes me more curious. But what actually happens inside our bodies when we fast? I mean, does everything just shut down?
Oh, no, not at all. Actually, quite the opposite. Dr. LaRosa breaks it down hour by hour, and it's pretty amazing. Okay, so let's say you finish that last meal. For those first 4 hours, what happens is your blood sugar goes up and then levels out. Pretty normal stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But between 4 and 8 hours, your body starts using its stored sugars, glycogen. Think of it as your body's backup energy reserve.
Interesting. So, we're burning through our reserves. What happens next? This is where it gets really interesting.
Absolutely. Okay, so after 8 hours, things begin to shift. Key hormones, like testosterone and growth hormone, actually increase, which can boost your metabolism.
And those increased testosterone and growth hormone levels, we touched on those earlier. This isn't just about like a faster metabolism, right? It can impact everything from energy levels to muscle growth, even mood. That's pretty significant.
It really is. These hormonal shifts are a major reason IAF is so popular. It gets even better. Once you hit like the 12-hour mark, your body's basically like, all right, time to use that fat for energy.
I bet that's good news for anyone trying to lose weight.
Definitely is, but the benefits actually go beyond just weight loss. Around the 16-hour mark, something called autophagy kicks in.
I've heard that term a lot. To be honest, I'm a bit fuzzy on what it means.
Well, think of it like this. When you fast, your body's energy reserves start to, deplete. And that triggers this process called autophagy, where your cells essentially start eating their own waste products, kind of like a built-in recycling system.
So our cells are doing a deep clean, getting rid of all the junk. Dr. LaRosa really seems to believe this is one of the most exciting benefits of IF, especially for anti-aging. And he even mentions stem cell production increasing at around 20 to 22 hours.
Yeah, but it's important to remember, stem cell production does increase with fasting. It's more noticeable in those extended fasts, which can be pretty intense. Dr. LaRosa, he highlights that these are like general timelines. Individual responses can vary. Factors like activity level and what you ate in your last meal. All that stuff can influence how your body reacts.
So it's not an exact science for everyone, but the potential's there.
Exactly, and that leads us to the different types of intermittent fasting, the ones Dr. LaRosa outlines in his video. He presents like 3 main approaches with different levels of, strictness.
Think about your own lifestyle and preferences here. Are you someone who needs that flexibility of snacks during the fasting window? Or are you ready to embrace the challenge of a strict water fast? Let's break these approaches down so you can see which one might resonate with you.
Okay, so the first approach is what Dr. LaRosa calls calorie restriction. You basically consume less than 500 calories during your fasting window. It's good if you're new to IF.
So dipping your toes into the fasting world.
Exactly. The second approach is insulin-focused. No food during the fasting window, but certain drinks are allowed, like bone broth, apple cider vinegar, tea, and untorrefied coffee. The focus is on keeping those insulin levels low.
More about managing a specific hormone than strict calorie counting, and then the most hardcore approach.
Yeah, the strictest approach allows only water and minerals during your fasting window. This method maximizes autophagy and other potential benefits, but can be a challenge to maintain, not for everyone.
So you've picked the IF approach that fits your lifestyle. Now, how do we supercharge those results? By combining it with exercise. Dr. LaRosa has some thoughts on this.
He suggests exercise can be beneficial during fasting, especially for burning fat, because it increases lipase production, an enzyme that breaks down fat. High-intensity interval training, or HIIT, in short bursts seems to be best while fasting.
So if you're trying to lose a few pounds, that increased lipase production from HIE during fasting could really help.
Exactly. But for those looking to, build muscle, lifting weights might be better after breaking the fast. Really depends on your goal.
Ah, the nuances. It's about finding what works best for you. Speaking of working best, Dr. LaRosa has strong opinions about what we should eat when we do break our fasts.
He really emphasizes that what you eat when you break your fast is super important. It plays a huge role in, maximizing the benefits of IF. Specifically, he recommends a low glycemic diet, so foods that don't cause rapid spikes in your blood sugar.
So foods that release energy slowly and keep us feeling full longer sounds like a good strategy. What are some examples of low glycemic diets?
Dr. LaRosa mentions the Mediterranean, paleo, and keto diets. They all prioritize whole, unprocessed foods, minimize those refined sugars and processed grains.
Okay, so we've got the fasting part down. We're starting to get the eating part. How do we get started with IF? Any tips from Dr. LaRosa?
He recommends a gradual approach. Start with a 12-hour eating window, like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Then slowly reduce it by 2 hours every 10 to 15 days. Listen to your body, adjust the fasting window if needed. If you're feeling weak or unwell, don't push it.
Don't be a hero. Slow and steady wins the race. But can IF really be used for different goals? I mean, we've talked about weight loss, but what about those who want to build muscle or live longer?
That's what's so interesting about IF. It can be adapted to support a lot of different goals. Let's start with weight loss. Dr. LaRosa addresses those who hit a weight loss plateau, suggesting that hormonal imbalances could be the culprit.
So IF isn't a magic bullet, but it can be a powerful tool when combined with a holistic approach to health. What about those looking to gain muscle? Friend or foe in that department?
Dr. LaRosa actually says that IF can support muscle growth, particularly with a 168 protocol. Remember those increased testosterone levels? They can help, especially with proper nutrition and a good workout routine.
So IF could potentially be a 2-for-1 deal, building muscle while burning fat. Impressive. What about longevity? Dr. LaRosa mentioned something pretty remarkable about a 1 meal per day approach.
He cited research suggesting a possible 30% increase in lifespan with that 1 meal per day approach. But he cautioned that this is extreme. More research is needed. And it's important to remember that such drastic measures should be approached carefully, ideally with supervision from a healthcare provider.
So the potential for a longer lifespan is exciting, but got to be realistic and safe, especially when exploring those more intense IF protocols. Speaking of being realistic, what about special occasions or unexpected disruptions to our fasting routine?
Well, Dr. LaRosa really emphasizes flexibility. An occasional break from your fasting routine won't erase all the benefits. Life happens, and enjoying those moments is important.
That's reassuring. So we don't have to live like hermits to reap the benefits of IF. But what about the long-term, sustainability of IF? Do the benefits decrease over time?
Dr. LaRosa suggests the opposite, actually. He believes the evidence indicates that the benefits of IF are cumulative. The longer you practice it, the greater the potential benefits.
Like a snowball effect. The more we invest in IF, the greater the returns. I like that. But with so many different approaches to IF, how do we know which one's right for us?
That's a great question. Like with any health strategy, the best approach is the one that aligns with, your individual goals, your preferences and lifestyle. There's no right or wrong answer. It's about choosing a method that feels manageable and sustainable for you.
Absolutely. It's about finding what works best for you, not getting caught up in rigid rules. And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into intermittent fasting. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll explore even more fascinating insights from Dr. LaRosa's video.
Welcome back to our deep dive into intermittent fasting. We left off talking about how IF can be adapted for different goals.
And something that really stuck with me is the potential of IF for extending lifespan. Dr. LaRosa seemed pretty enthusiastic about that. He even suggested like a 30% increase with a 1 meal per day approach.
Yeah, he did highlight that such an extreme approach isn't for everyone. And more research is needed. It's always a good idea to consult with a healthcare professional before making any drastic changes to your diet.
Absolutely. Got to be smart about it. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about some practical stuff, like incorporating IF into daily life. One thing I've always wondered about is supplements. Can we take those during our fasting windows?
Dr. LaRosa actually addresses this. He says in most cases, it's fine to take supplements while fasting. They're generally low in calories.
That makes sense. But are there any exceptions?
He does mention supplements that are fat-based, like omega-3 fatty acids.
Why are those different?
Well, high doses of fat-based supplements can add a lot of calories, which could, disrupt the fasting state.
So if we're taking omega-3s or other fat-based supplements, it's probably best to time them around our eating windows.
That's generally a good idea. Dr. LaRosa also notes that some supplements are actually absorbed better when taken with food.
Interesting. So for those, it might make sense to take them with a meal, even if it's within our eating window. Okay, supplements, check. What about coffee? Can we still enjoy our morning coffee while fasting?
Dr. LaRosa, he's a coffee lover himself. He says the type of coffee matters. He recommends untorrefied coffee, which is roasted without sugar.
Why is that important? Doesn't all coffee give us that energy boost?
While all coffee has caffeine, that added sugar in torrefied coffee can spike your blood sugar. and could interfere with the benefits of fasting.
So it's about minimizing blood sugar spikes, keeping our insulin levels in check. Makes sense. Untorrefied coffee it is. What about other beverages? Anything we should avoid while fasting?
Anything with calories or sweeteners is generally a no-go. That includes things like sugary drinks, fruit juices, even some flavored waters.
Sticking to plain water, unsweetened tea, and untorrefied coffee is the safest bet.
Exactly. Those will keep you hydrated without messing with your fast. Now, let's talk about something you brought up earlier, exercise.
Right, Dr. LaRosa seems to believe that exercise can really boost the benefits of IF, especially for fat burning.
He specifically mentions high-intensity interval training, or HIIT. It can increase the production of lipase, that fat-burning enzyme.
So if you're looking to, shed some pounds, adding those short bursts of intense exercise during your fasting windows could really speed things up.
Exactly, a powerful combination. But what about those who are more interested in building muscle?
Yeah, is it okay to lift weights while fasting?
That's where it gets interesting. Dr. LaRosa suggests that while HIIT can be beneficial during fasting, those aiming for, maximum muscle gain might get better results lifting weights after breaking their fast.
So timing those workouts strategically is key. It's all about working smarter, not just harder. Now, I want to touch on something Dr. LaRosa emphasized throughout his video, the importance of a healthy diet alongside IF. He seems to be a big advocate for a low glycemic approach.
Absolutely. He believes that eating low glycemic is crucial for getting the most out of IF. It helps keep your blood sugar levels stable, which is important for maintaining energy and, supporting your health.
And he gave some specific examples of low glycemic diets, right? Like the Mediterranean, paleo, and keto.
Yeah, exactly. These diets prioritize whole, unprocessed foods and minimize those refined sugars and processed grains. They focus on healthy fats, protein, really complement the principles of IF.
So it's not just when we eat, but what we eat. It's a holistic approach to health.
That's the key takeaway. FF is most effective as part of a bigger picture. That includes a balanced diet, exercise, even stress management.
Speaking of stress, I think one of the biggest concerns people have with IF is the fear of missing out, feeling restricted. Life happens. Birthday parties, dinners with friends, unexpected celebrations. Those things are part of what makes life enjoyable.
And Dr. LaRosa gets that. He acknowledges that social events can make sticking to, a strict fasting schedule a challenge, but he's not a fan of rigidity.
So he gives us permission to, live a little.
Absolutely. He emphasizes flexibility, reminds us that an occasional indulgence won't sabotage all our progress. It's about finding that sweet spot, a balance that works for our lives and our needs.
That makes IF seem a lot more approachable, sustainable. It's not about deprivation. It's about making choices that support our well-being without, turning our lives upside down. Okay, let's recap the different approaches to IF, the ones Dr. LaRosa outlined.
He presented like 3 main methods, each with different levels of, strictness. The first, what he calls limited IF, is simply reducing your calorie intake during the fasting window to under 500 calories.
So not a complete fast, more of a modified approach.
Exactly. It's a good entry point for those new to IF who want to ease in gradually.
What about the next level up?
The second approach focuses on lowering insulin levels. This involves abstaining from food during the fasting window, but allows certain drinks, like bone broth, apple cider vinegar, tea, and of course, untorrefied coffee.
Less about counting calories, more about managing that hormone. And finally, the approach for the truly dedicated.
Right. The strictest form of IF involves consuming only water and minerals during the fasting window.
Wow, that takes a lot of discipline.
It does. But it's also the method Dr. LaRosa believes unlocks the full potential of IF, maximizing things like autophagy and cellular regeneration.
Sounds like a powerful tool for those ready for the challenge. And I'm curious, with all these different approaches to IF, how do we know which one is the right fit?
There's no one-size-fits-all answer. The best approach is the one that aligns with, your individual goals, preferences, and lifestyle. It's about choosing a method that feels both manageable and sustainable.
I love that perspective. It's about finding what empowers you on your health journey. So we've chosen our approach. Now, how do we actually get started? Did Dr. LaRosa offer any guidance on that?
He suggests starting with a 12-hour eating window, maybe from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., then gradually reduce it by 2 hours every 10 to 15 days.
So easing into it, not jumping in headfirst.
Exactly. And the key is to listen to your body. If you're feeling weak or unwell, don't push yourself. It's about making this a sustainable part of your life.
Makes sense. Don't be a hero, folks. Slow and steady wins the race. Now, let's revisit how IF can be tailored to different goals. We've talked about weight loss. What about muscle gain?
Well, Dr. LaRosa believes that IF can support muscle growth, particularly with the 168 protocol. Combined with, proper nutrition and a good workout routine, it can be surprisingly effective for building muscle while losing fat. Those increased testosterone levels definitely play a role.
So it's not an either situation. You can use IF to achieve multiple goals. Pretty impressive. What about longevity? Dr. LaRosa mentioned some remarkable findings about the one meal per day approach. He seemed pretty excited about its potential.
He did. But it's important to remember that this is an extreme approach, not something to jump into without professional guidance. While the potential for increased lifespan is exciting, more research is needed to understand the long-term effects.
Excitement tempered with caution. Always smart to prioritize safety, especially when exploring these more extreme forms of IF. Now, let's address something that can be a bit of a stumbling block, those inevitable social occasions that might, disrupt our fasting routine. I'm talking birthday parties, holiday gatherings, unexpected celebrations. Life doesn't always fit neatly into a schedule.
And Dr. LaRosa recognizes that. He emphasizes that flexibility is key. And an occasional break from our routine. Won't undo all our hard work. Enjoying those moments is important too.
That's a relief. It takes the pressure off, makes IF feel much more sustainable.
It's about finding that balance, right? Enjoying life while still making healthy choices.
Exactly. It's not about deprivation. It's about empowerment, choosing what works for you.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into intermittent fasting. Be sure to join us for part 3. We'll continue exploring Dr. LaRosa's insights and leave you with some final thoughts and actionable takeaways. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of intermittent fasting with Dr. LaRosa's insights.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, exploring the science and practical applications of IF, uncovering some hidden gems.
And one thing that really stuck with me is Dr. LaRosa's constant emphasis on personalization. He stresses there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Absolutely. He really encourages listeners to experiment and find what works for their bodies and goals.
Which is refreshing, It's about empowerment, not rigid rules. Right, exactly. And he offers a good starting point for easing into IF gradually. He suggests a 12-hour eating window to begin with and slowly reducing it.
And he reminds us to, listen to our bodies. If you're feeling weak or unwell, don't push it.
Yeah, good point. If should make us feel better, not worse.
Right. It's all about balance.
Finding that balance that works for your needs.
And speaking of needs, we've discussed how IF can be tailored for different goals, from weight loss to muscle gain, even potentially, increasing lifespan.
We also explored how combining IF with a healthy diet can really amplify those benefits, like the Mediterranean, paleo, or keto.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about Dr. LaRosa's insights into how IF affects our hormones, like testosterone and growth hormone. They're crucial for metabolism and well-being.
Right. Those hormonal shifts are a big reason why IF is so popular. And then there's that amazing process of autophagy, that cellular cleanup that happens during fasting.
Yeah, it's remarkable how changing when we eat can trigger such powerful changes, potentially slowing down aging and improving our health.
And Dr. LaRosa highlighted some research suggesting those benefits are cumulative. The longer you practice IF, the greater the rewards.
That's motivating, but it's important to remember. Like anything, we need to approach IF with balance and information.
Yeah, be mindful of the potential risks.
Yeah.
Especially with those more extreme forms of IF, like the one meal per day approach.
And it's always a good idea to consult with a healthcare professional before making any big changes, especially if you have any health conditions.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, what are your takeaways? What sparked your curiosity? What aspects of IF are you most excited to explore further?
We encourage you to keep researching and experimenting. Find what works best for you on your health journey.
Remember, IF is a tool. It's about empowering yourself to make healthy choices.
And we're here to support you along the way with evidence-based insights and guidance.
Until next time, stay curious. Embrace the power of knowledge.
This has been The Deep Dive.